Hello, I'm Christine Sloan with Insider NJ, and today we're having a conversation with Bridget Anne Kelly. In 2016, Kelly, Chris Christie's former deputy chief of staff, and his political appointee, Bill Baroni, were convicted of fraud and conspiracy. But this past year, in a stunning move, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned both of their convictions. And joining me is Bridget Anne Kelly. Bridget, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. First of all, I want to ask you, what was going through your mind when you found out that the U.S. Supreme Court had overturned your conviction?
Christine, thank you for having me. I have to tell you, you don't get any inclining that it's going to happen. So we appeared, my case was heard in front of the Supreme Court on January 14th, 2020. Mm-hmm. And we knew they would go to recess, in June. So it was just any time now. So I was going about my daily living, and it was right before Mother's Day. And my brother is a trauma nurse on a helicopter. Mm-hmm. And so his schedule is erratic. So I went to a place in Englewood Cliffs to get a brunch box so they could celebrate Mother's Day a little bit earlier. My brother has 3 kids with his wife, and they could just celebrate Mother's Day that week. So I was picking them up a brunch box, and I got a phone call from my attorney in Washington, D.C., and he just said, "Bridget, it's over." And I was like, "What?" He said, "We won. It's over." And it was just surreal. It was, and in the order of phone calls, he might not have been the first. There was the phone just started ringing, and, you just kept on refreshing. And I was like, is it true? And it was, and all 7 counts that were remaining were overturned. And, Christine, I pulled off to the side of the road and cried. I cried a lot. And I got to my brother's, delivered the brunch box, and I was in shock. I was absolutely in shock, but it was a good shock. And it was, I wanted my kids near me. I wanted to be with everybody, but mindful of the fact that we were in COVID. So the celebratory nature of it and what it should have been was obviously respectful of the situation, but I just wanted to hug my mom and my kids.
Bridget, you're running for Bergen County Clerk, and I can't believe you're kind of running back into the political arena again, but I do want to ask you one more thing. I was there covering the trial with you and the scandal, watched you sort of go through this for 7 years. You were grace under pressure. What was that like, going through that for all of those years? It must have been so stressful.
It was. I mean, I did it because it was the right thing to do. I have 4 kids, ages 24 to 14. Mm-hmm. During that time, they were babies. I mean, my youngest, I don't know that she remembers life before Bridgegate. So going through it, it was looking at them every night that I got home from my attorneys when we were prepping for the case. Through the trial, it was leaving them every morning and then coming home to them. Sometimes doing what is right is what is the hardest thing to do, but it's the right thing to do. And so it was difficult. There's no doubt it took a strain on friendships. My friends are amazing. My family are incredible. And most importantly, my kids showed a strength that kept me going.
A lot of people have been going through tremendous stress, but in a way they're sort of going through it together. You were kind of on your own island.
What was
that like?
I'm a people person, so there were so many people from my life in Trenton. I worked in Trenton for 20 years before Bridgegate, so I had some real, what I thought were friendships. I think it was really hard to see all those people kind of walk out on me. But I also strengthened friendships. I saw sides of people, strangers, and other people that came into my life that during this whole time that have been better to me than, I could have ever imagined. So it was hard. I mean, I had every day I walked, and I saw you every day, walked in and out of court with my attorneys who became my family. And they protected me fiercely, and they were amazing the whole stretch of it. But they became my family, and what was right and what I needed to do was fight this. So Christine, I'll say this, as difficult as the legal challenge was, which was in the hands of my attorneys, and the truth, the psychological and the emotional losses for me were greater.
I have to ask you this. Have you talked to Chris Christie?
No. I saw him. He came to the United States Supreme Court, sat in front of me, but no, we did not speak.
Do you ever plan on speaking to him? Do you think
I don't believe that there's a need.
I got you. I got you. I'm curious. I know that you were also very close and worked very closely with Bill Stepien, who worked on Christie's campaign, went on to work for former President Donald Trump's campaign. He his name was mentioned during the trial, but he went unscathed. He kind of disappeared and we didn't hear from him, and he was not charged in any way. But I know you guys all work very closely in that office. It's a very close-knit environment. Have you been able to chat with him, or was he able to, share anything?
Bill and I have been in touch over the years. Early on, we were the two that were fired together in January of 2014. Bill and I are good friends. Bill's he's one of the smartest guys in politics. And he's done well and he'll continue to do well. But, in terms of, his role and whatever else, he lost his job with the governor on the same day I did. And then his path, he was able to land on his feet because he was not named or charged or whatnot. So
I admire all of you, because you're talking about 7 years of your life financially dealing with that, trying to keep normalcy around your family.
Right.
A lot of us see what it's like not to have normalcy this past year. What lessons do you think you took away from that?
My biggest crime was trusting people. And I know that sounds cliche, but it's true. I trusted way too many people. And unfortunately, throughout my life, my mother has always said that I, was always too trusting. I always thought everyone was my friend. And that wasn't the case. And I was led down a path of deception and not who I am. And so I think that's the hardest part. And I said to you earlier, I was demonized so badly early on. I was, the pictures that were shown and the master report that painted me as this emotional female who got her heart broken, so she realigned the lanes at the bridge. It's ludicrous. So I was so demonized that I would tell you that the trial humanized me, because every day I went there, I was a mom. And that's what mattered most. And so fighting was what mattered most. And that's what kept me going. But, I was not this volunteer who got a job because she ran a good phone bank. I had 20 years in state government. And so for me, people have asked, what are you doing? Why are you going back to this? This is what I know, and this is what I love. And there are still good people in this business. And I believe when government serves the people and serves the people correctly, I think it's a good thing. So I love the process of government. The politics of government come into play, but that's not how I roll. And unfortunately, I got caught up with people where the politics of government were more important than the governing of government.
Yes, certainly. For those of us who covered, Trenton politics, you were known as a troubleshooter. You got things done, and that was your career that you put so much time into and so much effort into all your life. And it certainly was just so sad to watch you get demonized as a woman. And you've come on top strong. You're going. You're open with people, and I think that's the first step in sort of healing. I do want to ask you one more thing before we get into the Bergen County Clerk position. And I think it goes back to trusting people. I've always wanted to ask you about the email. Time for some traffic problems on the GWB. I'm phrasing it probably not the way exactly.
Okay, don't worry about it. I know which one you mean. What was that all about? Listen, I testified for 4 or 5 days in court about this. It was interpreted by others. There was conversations leading up to that email. It was sent in haste. In court, I said to the jury when I was testifying, if I had said time for a traffic study in Fort Lee, I wouldn't know you, Christine. I wouldn't know the jurors, and I certainly wouldn't have known the U.S. Attorney's Office. So, it was left for interpretation for convenience of others. And the context with that there's so much context in those 7 or 8 words that preceded that email. And unfortunately, I was drinking from a fire hose in that job,
Yeah.
and I typed it in haste, and it was, it'll follow me the rest of my life, and I understand that.
Look, we all know interpretation via text or email, we do things quickly, and I can't, does that change your way? You're saying trusting people. It must be
Yeah.
very difficult to trust people to open up to them after that, via email or text messaging.
Yeah, I mean, it's in everyday life, right? So, one of my kids will send a text, and I'll be like, don't be fresh. Well, I know they're being fresh because I know their voices. So I hear their voice in their words that they text. But when left open to interpretation by others, it could be anything. But trust is a big problem for me. It's in fact, it's almost a frightening thing. And it's probably, as I said to you, it was my biggest crime, was that I trusted too many people. So now it's, as you meet people, and whether it's meeting new moms at schools or whatever it is over the years, I'm very cautious. And unfortunately, I have this albatross at Bridgegate. I feel like it's a scarlet letter. And it's, people prejudge or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm who I am, and I never change throughout this. And I still probably trust too quickly. But I believe in humanity, and I believe in people. So,
In talking about humanity, David Wildstein made a deal, which had both of you convicted. Is there anything you want to say to him?
No, I have nothing to say to David.
Well, let's just get into this position, the Bergen County Clerk. In years past, it was, it wasn't the position that we focused on, right, in the political arena. But this past election, it became a huge deal because of what happened with the 2020 election. Just tell me why you think you are qualified for this position.
Listen, growing up, Kathy Donovan was the Bergen County Clerk, and I grew up in Bergen County, and everybody knew Kathy. And Kathy was so well regarded in that role. Elections have changed, and what is needed in that role. And Kathy served proudly, and is almost so well revered in Bergen County. And to me, she was always somebody who I looked to, and we did, when I worked both for Assemblyman Russo and for Governor Christie. Elections have changed, voting has changed, right? I mean, if we look at what happened this year, forget about COVID.
Yeah.
Vote by mail was going to be a thing whether we had COVID or not. So, listen, there are things that could be done better. I think the management or mismanagement of the office is something that we're going to talk about over the coming months. And it's largely an administrative role. And what I like about it is that people come there with a question, and you get them an answer. Yeah. And either you help them or you have to find where they can get help. So it's what I love to do. I love to see things through from beginning to end. And as we go on over the coming months, we're going to talk about the real things facing the clerk's office. But for me, I feel like it's just the right fit at the right time.
You're running for the Republican nomination, and you'll be facing John Hogan, who's a Democrat.
Correct.
Is it strange to go back to the Republican Party? I know you're a lifelong Republican, but just to go back to the party again after what you went through as a result of the party with Bridgegate?
Actually, I love the way you phrase that, but the party obviously has changed, but politics and government have changed. And I think the 24-hour news cycle has added to that or inflamed it. I was involved in government and worked in government when government wasn't cool. Like it was people I don't want to say people didn't pay attention, but it wasn't the focus of every, you didn't turn on the TV and that was the first story. It was, people would be like, you work for who? What congressperson? They just didn't know who anybody was. And now it's like the cool or whatever, however people see it. So listen, the party, I'm going to say this, the party didn't hurt me. People hurt me. People that are members of a party hurt me. And so that doesn't take away what I believe in. Christine, I couldn't vote from 2016 until 2020.
That must have been so hard, right? Because this was your
Horrible.
life.
For me, it's like Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. So for me, and to have that right taken away, and to have your passport turned over, and you can't travel without notifying out of state without notifying your officer, I was stripped of so much, and just of my own like well-being, that the party, I never saw it as a party thing. I saw it as a person thing, and the people that hurt me so badly that I never saw it as a party thing.
Yeah, I think just in terms of what you went through, it wasn't a party thing. You had the Democratic legislative, the committee going after you and demanding answers every day. You had the Republican Party sort of just turning its back, on you. I kind of like, when I was thinking about you running for this office, I was thinking you're sort of like, at some point you didn't really belong to either of these parties. You were kind of on your own, and now you're just sort of trying to make your way back into what really, I think, from what I've seen, and I remember Kathy Donovan, I've covered politics for so many years in New Jersey, and you, it's a passion, right? It's a passion for you, and I applaud you. You're getting back into it despite everything you've been through, and I kind of want to get into that. What does it feel like to just go back into that again after all that you have experienced in your life, especially during these past 7 years?
The phone calls aren't easy. There are a lot of people that I'm calling I haven't spoken to in 7 years. Walking into a room is not as easy as, I used to walk in and I knew everybody in the room. Faces have changed, names have changed. But I'm still who I am. And so, unfortunately, it's an easy introduction to those I haven't met. I can say my name and people are like, oh, I know who you are. I don't know if that's flattering or if it's a little disturbing, but it's what I love to do. It's, people said to me, oh, you should, go do this or go do that. My life is in state government or in government, I should say. My first internship was for Pat Schuber, who was the county executive when I was in college. So this is what I like to do. I'm a nerd. I'm a total government nerd. Yeah. But I love it. And I love helping people. And I love, even in the short time since I announced, I've had more people say like, oh, can you help us with this? And I was like, oh, I can't wait, and it's just, and it's not about being needed. It's about being productive. And so I don't know, this feels really right. And it took a while to get to it feeling right, because I need to make sure my kids were okay. And, my oldest is in Charleston, South Carolina, lives there. I've got one in college, one in high school, and one in 8th grade. So, their lives have already been so upended, but they were all like, Mom, this is what you love to do. Yeah. And we've been through worse, which is true.
Well, I applaud you for being open. You were kicked down. You are coming back strong and getting back into what gave you so much pain for so many years. But I wish you luck, and I know you're going to do well. Thank you so much for joining us. And don't end this conversation. I'd love to talk to you again.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your kindness.
Thank you, Kelly.
Take care.
Thank you, Bridget. I appreciate it. I'm Christine Sloan with Insider NJ. Thank you so much for joining us.